and welcome to the fourth episode of Good Happens Here, the TrueNorth podcast where we take a deep dive into topics we hope you'll care about as much as we do. I'm Chris Keebler, your host. I'm the communications director at TrueNorth, but I started my career here over 27 years ago as the agency's first ever volunteer services coordinator. You guessed it, today we're going to be talking about volunteerism. But before we get into that, a quick reminder. The audio-only versions of our podcast are available on all major podcast host sites, but only for 90 days after they initially post. After 90 days, they're only available in the video version on the TrueNorth YouTube channel. There's a Good Happens Here podcast playlist available there with all episodes. So if you haven't listened to any of the earlier episodes and you really prefer the audio-only versions, you better get on it soon. This episode is brought to you in part by Roots Run Deep Creation, a locally owned mobile makerspace rooted right here in our own Newaygo County community. Built from one person's vision, it's a place to create, learn, and make something with your own two hands. Roots Run Deep Creation, local, simple, and made to bring folks together. As I mentioned, today we'll be talking about volunteerism. There's an old adage that goes, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. This suggests that productive, engaged people are more likely to get stuff done, which makes them ideal volunteers. It's also one of the reasons why people who do volunteer regularly get burned out. Those who volunteer give freely of their time and talents, and the fact of the matter is, an agency like TrueNorth wouldn't be able to accomplish a fraction of what it does in a community like ours without its volunteers. All right, joining me today is TrueNorth's Chief Program Officer, Caitlin Voigt. Welcome to the podcast, Caitlin.
Thank you.
Ever done a podcast before?
I have not. This is my first podcast. I'm really excited.
I know you're not camera shy, though, right?
I am not.
Okay.
No.
Oh, well, I know you're not stage frighty. What's stage fright? But camera's a little different. Sometimes people get weirded out by cameras. You've been with the agency for a decent number of years now, but you started at Camp Newaygo. And for the uninitiated, TrueNorth owns and operates Camp Newaygo. It's one of our community services. What did you do for camp?
So it's more like, what didn't I do for Camp Newaygo? I started there in 2002 when I was still in college, and I wanted that like Parent Trap experience to go off to summer camp and be a counselor. So I did that for several years.
Did twins show up? And it was
it was just like the movies. No, it was wonderful, a really great experience for me. And then I came back and started working full time in 2015 as the business director, and later on I added on alumni relations. Right. But during that time, I also worked a lot with volunteerism and our alumni. So,
yeah. I mean, Camp Newaygo as well as TrueNorth uses a lot of volunteers, so I'm sure you've just
I mean volunteers
coordinated and worked with and
yeah, all the time.
So I mentioned in the opening that I was the agency's first I wasn't full-time, it was a half-time position, volunteer coordinator. I had 2 half-time jobs, but that was the first one they ever had. So while you haven't directly coordinated volunteer efforts, you've seen the very many different ways people get involved and the different kinds of people. Let's get right to the heart of this. Why do people volunteer? Why do you think people volunteer?
I think one of the biggest reasons why people volunteer, and this is especially true of Camp Newaygo, is they're really drawn to the mission and what goes on there. So Camp Newaygo is an all-girls summer camp, and we teach resilience and grit and giving independence and experiences in the outdoors to young women. So I think a lot of our alumni and volunteers really resonate with that mission and really want to give back that way. And I think for TrueNorth, it's similar. It's why do people help in the food pantry with Mike? They just really want to make sure that people get fed, and they feel good giving out that food in the food truck, or working with children or older adults who come in to do any kind of like administrative tasks.
Okay. This idea of giving back, people, I hear that a lot from people. I want to give back to the community. Mm-hmm. That's like probably the most common reason I've heard people say. I think the next most common is, like you said, mission support. Mm-hmm. People get behind a pet cause. Mm-hmm. In Camp Newaygo's case, it might be a lot of alumni, people who were directly impacted by them as young girls. Now as women want to do it, or their spouses or their family members. But sometimes it's like just because they're bored and want to get out of the house.
Sure.
I mean, there's people volunteer because they have cord born.
Right. It's like some have to. I mean, I really think people get into volunteerism in a variety of ways, obviously, but I think more importantly, what they get out of that time volunteering at the end is pretty much the same, right? Usually they feel fulfilled or they want to keep doing it. Or
ideally,
just makes them feel
right?
better. Ideally,
yes.
Yes.
If an agency or organization does it right.
Yes.
So this begs the question, why don't people volunteer?
So I think there's a lot of reasons. One being time. It's a time commitment, and people have just lead busy lives.
Yeah.
I mean, between work and families and extracurriculars, it's just sometimes not a priority. And I think too, COVID really hit volunteerism hard.
Yeah.
And it changed the way people interacted socially and publicly, and so a lot of people just stopped going out, and that we're still seeing the effects of that. I think people are slow to re-engage with their communities in general.
That was an interesting time because there were people that, because they had more time, really wanted to do something, but they couldn't. There was nowhere to do it.
Yes.
Because you were supposed to stay at home.
Yes.
I find there's a couple things, I think, and again, my experience was that sometimes it's an agency like TrueNorth is open, generally speaking, during business hours, 8 to 5. We have evening hours on Thursdays now, but that's a new thing for us. So if you work, for example, when are you going to volunteer?
Right.
Not for TrueNorth, unless it was an evening or a weekend. Camp Newaygo has a little more
weekend
times available, but that's a big barrier to a lot of people who are working, for example, work regular jobs.
Right.
The other thing people often say is nobody asked. Right?
Yes.
I was talking with Chadwick Wallinger, our True Mentors coordinator, and one of the biggest reasons there's a shortage of male volunteers in every aspect, not just for mentors, but that's the biggest reason. Well, nobody asked me. So I don't say that flippantly or with an attitude.
Right.
I did say it with a bit of an attitude, but I didn't mean it that way. But if people aren't asked, they don't do it.
It's true. I mean, people don't know what opportunities are out there, so sometimes you just got to put it right in front of them. Right.
And having available times for them.
Right.
I think also connecting people with something that they're passionate about. People will show up to TrueNorth to volunteer, and we've got a lot of opportunities, and we're going to talk about all the different kind of things. But if they showed up because they really wanted to work with kids, and we end up making them stuff envelopes, they're going to not be fulfilled, and they might not come back. Right.
Exactly.
So, okay, so. Do you have a good sense of what kind of people volunteer? Like, is there a typical volunteer? Do you think there's a typical volunteer?
I don't think I don't think there's anyone like universal looking volunteer out there. I mean, we tend to have a lot of retirees, so that is a population that gives back frequently because they just in general have more time.
They have the time.
And
are looking for stuff to do.
Yes, but that doesn't mean we are trying to engage right now at TrueNorth younger volunteers, so that those under 21, let's say, and Fremont School District here does have a requirement for graduation to have some volunteer hours, which I think is great.
Yep.
Because it really, is
teaches civic responsibility, right?
Teaches civic responsibility. Get them out there. Yeah. So, and I think it's important for youth to be introduced to volunteerism at a young age, because then, they might be more apt to continue that, especially those middle years. So I would say the most atypical volunteer are those probably my age with like a young family, full-time work, and just a million obligations,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. My father was a high-powered businessman type, engineering, and then went into sales and stuff, like a Mad Men, old school,
John Hamm's not volunteering.
No. Yeah, that's what you think, right? When he retired, I assumed he would take up golf or something.
Sure.
But he bought an RV and traveled for a year or two, and then he got sick of that, sold the RV, and he started volunteering at the hospital that did his open heart, and he had regular shifts. So he showed up there, and again, I don't think anyone would have expected. I would never really expect it from my dad. But he showed up and he's like, I want to volunteer. And they're like, oh, Mr. Keebler, you've been looking at his resume, as it were. And what do you want to do? And he's like, well, give me the thing that no one else wants to do. And they're like, well, you don't want to work in the ER because you're a man of your... He's like, I'll do that. I'll work in the ER. Blood doesn't bother him. Nothing bothers him. So he just wheeled people around in the ER and gave them warm blankets and cleaned up stuff. And he did that for 10 or 15 years. I was so shocked. But again, proof that there's no typical type of person that volunteers.
Or typical type of volunteer experience, because I can't imagine the ER. I mean, I think I've been watching too much of The Pit on TV, and so it's but
They
Yeah,
have
that's
like
great.
they used to call them candy stripers, but I think those are like nurse trainee or whatever.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
people that do that. I mean, they're just like there to like wheel people from room to room or to give them the warm blankets and just
that's
basic
great.
stuff.
Yeah.
So we're going to discuss the different types of volunteers. What are some of the ways that people give back at True North? What are some of like the typical, all the different kind of ways we use volunteers?
Sure. So I think the biggest volunteer need we have here and what we use the most for is in our hunger prevention programs. So we run a food truck that comes every other week, I believe.
It's twice a month.
Twice a month.
It's not every other week, but it is twice a month. Yes.
Whatever terminology
Yes.
that is.
Well, if you're like you could be it's twice a month. Yes. We do it.
Bi-monthly? I don't know. So that requires quite a few people. I would say to successfully run that, at least a dozen volunteers.
Yeah, at least.
Per truck. So that's a good one for corporate volunteer groups that want to do something together as
We're
a
going to
group.
give back to corporate volunteers.
Yes.
But yes, it is.
Save that for later.
It's a good one, yes.
And then also we run a food pantry, unlike a lot of places. So we have a food pantry that we try to operate like a grocery store where people can then shop for what they...
We don't even call it a pantry, we call it a food center.
Food center, yes. Yeah, exactly. Oh, gosh.
That's all right.
Edit out food pantry.
Mike's going to be so
I should
mad.
know that. Yeah. So, that we have volunteers that staff that every day. We have volunteers that staff the check-in for that every day. So that's a big one. Another one I would say is Camp Nuevo, because in the summertime when they're operating their overnight camp programs, they... require people to drive trips because they do overnights. They need people to, I had a volunteer one time that I sent to the store to get like 10 gallons of milk because we were short on milk for dinner. So like just random stuff like that. Gardening. Yep. They have huge gardens that need tending to. So those two programs I would say are biggest need. But we also now have, and this was a previous podcast, our Engage in Community Connection programs, so our social isolation programs with older adults. We try to engage our older adults with some kind of volunteerism. And that's usually lighter volunteerism, like the administrative, mailings and things like that.
And let's be clear, we say lighter volunteerism, not that it's less important, it's just, it's not maybe physically as difficult and it's shorter term.
Physically difficult, right. And smaller projects that don't last
but
so
still
long.
Hugely important.
Yes.
Right, okay.
So I just went back there now, and the ladies are back there painting or glazing bowls for our Empty Bowls fundraiser. Right. So, they're just chatting, having their coffee, but also actively giving back that way. And then, there new volunteer opportunities pop up all the time.
Sure.
Just random, events we have. I know Chadwick was on talking about mentoring, and he utilizes a heavy amount of volunteers for mentors. And
Needs
things like
volunteers,
that. Needs volunteers.
Yeah, so it's interesting. There's like, how do I word this? I don't want to say different tiers, but there's so many different ways you can volunteer. The fact of the matter is our board of directors are all volunteers.
True.
So that's a volunteer position to sit on the board of directors for True North. If you're a matched mentor with a mentee, that's a volunteer position. That's kind of a long term.
Right.
But there's also mentor events that happen when you show up for a day and you hang out with kids and eat pizza with them and play kickball or something. And there are things like glazing bowls. So there's so many different kinds of volunteer opportunities in a place like True North. And I know in the county there's a lot of places that use volunteers. We don't have animals here if you love animals, but there's an animal shelter and there's a Newaygo County a shelter as well. They need volunteers. But almost everything that you'd want to do, you can probably do at True North. Anything that you're really passionate about, almost anything, we probably have some way for you to get involved at True North. Okay, so to say that volunteers are the lifeblood of True North is really a huge understatement. It's a bit of an understatement. How many people volunteer at an agency like True North in a typical year? Do you have those numbers?
So I looked back at some of the past several years, and we typically, our volunteer hours range anywhere from 18,000 to 22,000 annually.
Okay.
So that number, and divided out between around 400 volunteers.
Yeah.
Unduplicated numbers of people coming in and volunteering. So
because they come back from multiple.
Yes.
Some do.
Yeah.
And we have there are annual events that happen once a year, like Children's Christmas Program or Tools for Schools or Empty Bowls, where you come in and volunteer at an event, and then there's long-term regular volunteers like the Food Center.
Correct.
So, do we have an idea of what kind of salary savings that offers a place like TrueNorth?
Yeah. So every year, our country releases what a volunteer hour would be worth. The average, yes. Yeah, and it's around $35 an hour, which is huge.
Because you're averaging people who volunteer their time as a lawyer on somebody's board, as well as somebody who's stuffing envelopes, and it all averages out.
I mean, time is very important. So for us, that's close to $325,000 a year that we have in volunteers.
Which is several full-time employees. Yeah, that's why I say we couldn't do what we do without our volunteers. Just a reminder, today's podcast is sponsored by Roots Run Deep Creation, a welcoming space to try something new, work on a project, and be part of a creative community. Roots Run Deep Creation. Come make something. What does it look like? What's our intake process for volunteers? Someone decides, I want to get involved and want to do something. I've got a pet cause. I want to go into TrueNorth. What's the process like?
Sure. So we have just a basic intake, I'm interested in volunteering form. You can head to our website. You could call us. Any of those things are fine. And it's basically just this quick intake of what's your name? What are you interested in? Right. Do you have any secret special talents that would be particular use? Yeah. Can you play the ukulele? Because we have a summer camp and that would be delightful.
And you might think that's not a volunteer, but guess what?
Sure is.
Sure is, yeah. Well, I love gardening. Well, guess what? We've got gardens here. We need someone to take care of them. Yeah.
I mean in my mind, I'm like, can you tune a piano? We have this beautiful piano. Just random things like that.
Yeah.
And then we contact you. Our volunteer coordinator contacts you and just kind of has an initial conversation about our opportunities, where you would be the best fit. And then you come in, fill out a formal application. You get a volunteer handbook. We kind of lay out how everything works here. You meet with the department heads who you might be volunteering for. And then we do the standard background checks. Right. So we do run background checks because we're working with vulnerable populations.
Sure. Normally I'd be sitting and talking to our volunteer coordinator instead of you. But we just happen to be in between. We just hired somebody new. They're starting at the end of the month, like in a day or two, right?
They're starting on Monday.
Okay, so
when this airs, whatever day that is,
But we do have a volunteer coordinator,
yes.
And we'll put their information on screen later on in this episode. One of the things we also do when we talk about is we do an annual recognition event for our volunteers called Community of Efforts. It happens every spring, where we invite the people who have volunteered for the past year in. We give out a number of Volunteer of the Year awards from the different departments, and there's some big agency Volunteer of the Year awards, trophies or whatever, or awards of some kind, some kind of cool
fancy
thing.
Award.
Usually a nice meal and sometimes entertainment and stuff, because we really do value our volunteers. So
we do.
If you volunteer, you'll eventually get a free meal out of it.
We will feed you.
Some of the trends we're seeing in volunteerism include shifting towards, and this is what I looked up, so some of this language is internet language, shifting towards flexible short-term and virtual opportunities, with formal long-term commitments declining and informal neighborly help-type opportunities increasing. I'm not even sure what that meant, but that's what they said the trends were. Driven by younger generations, millennials and Gen Zs. Trends include skill-based volunteering and high-impact episodic events.
Yes.
Are we seeing those shifts here as well? Does that make sense?
I think I can pick out a couple key
Some
things.
Some things that actually mean something.
Yeah, let me sort through the jargon here. So I think the episodic volunteer, you mentioned our special programs. So we have these one-off special programs like Children's Christmas Program, which is our huge Christmas event that runs for a full week.
Yep.
And that requires a ton of volunteers, but they're only here for either a day or some come the full week.
Right.
And that type of just one-off, really high impact event, we get a lot of one-time volunteers. So that's great. And I think as far as corporate volunteerism, what I'm seeing, which is amazing, is there's a lot of companies who incentivize volunteerism out into their communities. So they'll either give their employees work time to go volunteer, or
volunteering on the clock, which is awesome.
Or any kind of I've talked to corporate volunteers who get monetary like if
stipend
you
or something.
do this many hours, you get a bonus stipend. So
particularly civic-minded organizations. Yes, right.
Yes.
The stat I saw was that something right around 65% of corporations are doing this. They're offering corporate volunteer.
What a great
activities.
trend.
It is. Yeah. We've actually seen a decent amount locally. I know our Wescos have been really good.
Our Wesco's amazing. Yep.
We've got places like the White Agency. I don't want to leave somebody out, but who are some other?
I don't want to leave anybody out.
We've had several.
Choice One Bank, they always send somebody. Wesco, Huntington, the banks, the local insurance.
Forget
anybody.
If you're a local corporation, we appreciate you. It's just it's not one of our direct jobs, so we don't have these things up top. But we're seeing it here as well, and it's always very cool when they show up in their little matching shirts.
Yeah, and I'm like,
again, that sounds like I'm being condescending. But I'm not.
They are cute little shirts.
They got their matching Huntington shirts, and they're volunteering at Children's Christmas or whatever. This episode is going to post in early April, and April is National Volunteer Month. What does True North have in store for National Volunteer Month?
So typically for National Volunteer Month, we focus in on a couple things. We do like a volunteer appreciation week, which kind of manifests in many different ways. Before we've had a banner up, and when you walk in, you can see that, we appreciate our volunteers. And then we've given our volunteers various recognition items, food, everything, just telling them that we appreciate the occasional mug, just things to let them know that they're appreciated and that their work is important. The state of Michigan has little mini grants that go out various times throughout the year, and they do one for youth during April to recognize Volunteer Month. And this year, Camp Newaygo received one of these mini grants.
Awesome.
So they're going to be doing a Arbor Day event with saplings, and they're partnering with local businesses to kind of, I think, give out.
And student volunteers are going to be passing out the saplings.
Student volunteers will be passing them out.
Awesome.
So that'll be really great.
All right. So, is there anything else we need to cover, or anything you want to say about volunteerism, either here at True North or at Camp Newaygo, or in general? Anything that sparked, we should talk about this, or we should have said this, or?
I think just in general that if you've never volunteered before, you really should give it a go. And I think, for volunteerism, it's what matters to you. It's what you're interested in. You don't have to volunteer for something that you've have no real interest in. But
and if you come to a place like True North and you get assigned a volunteer task and it's not really up your alley, it's totally cool. We'll pivot. We'll pivot with you. We'll find something that you can really enjoy doing.
If you're like, I thought I would like this, but I hate it,
that's all right.
We'll move you around.
We got plenty of other places to put people.
A million other options. And Newaygo County has a ton of really great organizations that accept volunteers. So if you just don't know, just look out there, and there's, Lionheart always needs ushers for their shows.
Do.
So I saw that
building.
one.
Yes, we do. They always do. They always use the cast for everything. We can't usher in act. So we want to thank everybody for watching and or listening to our 4th episode. And if you want more information about volunteering with True North or Camp Newaygo, we encourage you to reach out to our new volunteer coordinator, Madison Butler. I'll put her contact information on the screen, but for those of you who are listening, you may call her here at True North at 231-924-0641, extension 112, or email her at Butler, B-U-T-L-E-R, at True North Services, TrueNorthServices.org, O-R-G. You can also visit our website, www.truenorthservices.org. You can call directly to camp at 231-652-1184. Did they have a person that's like the...
Yes, you want to ask for Lily.
Ask for Lily.
And
she will hook you up with volunteer opportunities at Camp Newaygo. I'll put her information. I think it's, what's Lily's last name? Oh my gosh. Lily Villa.
Yes, L-V-I-L-L-A at campnewaygo.org.
I'll put it on screen also, but thank you for those who are listening to the audio onlys. We want to thank Stephen Thwaites again, our audio engineer, for these podcasts. This one went smoother than last month, and our sign didn't fall down yet, which is good. And lastly, if you're a business or organization, or even you personally would like to sponsor a future episode of Good Happens Here, please reach out to me here at True North at 231-924-0641, extension 113. 973 or email me at ckeebler, Kuebler, at TrueNorthServices.org. So thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with me here tonight. Thanks for Roots Run Deep Creation for sponsoring our 4th episode. And to all of you, thank you for helping make good happen here.
Wonderful. Thank you.